What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Wild Card Weekend, Steelers, Bills. Games been moved, so I moved the preview back a little bit for you guys. But first and foremost, not going to talk a ton about the weather, the decision to move the game. All that stuff's been hashed out a lot on social media. We're not going to talk about that stuff. But let's get into the preview. Go over some injuries, some matchups, things to look for, all that good stuff. For the Steelers' perspective, everybody's pretty much healthy except TJ. So really going into this one with a good, clean bill of health. Minka Fitzpatrick is back. Isaac Samala has been playing a little bit hurt, as has Landon Roberts. Pointed that out on Twitter. But I hope that you guys really appreciated what Roberts did last week because the dude can literally not move one of his arms. So was running with one arm, wasn't even able to push up off one arm when he was on the ground. It was a crazy, crazy performance that I think deserves a lot of recognition. From the Bills' standpoint, they are a little bit more banged up. They've already ruled out Gabe Davis, their wide receiver that plays on the outside, more of a field stretcher type guy. You remember Davis from the matchup last year. I think it was first drive of the game. He caught that 90-yard-ish touchdown when the Steelers were trying to play bracket on the outside. So Gabe is really hit or miss. Like he's had some really big games, and then he'll have a couple games where he just doesn't get involved at all. So how much that kind of plays into things is to be determined. Taylor Rapp is the other guy that they've ruled out. He's kind of their third safety that they play whenever they want to go with kind of like a big dime look. Two other guys questionable. Terrell Dodson questionable with a shoulder, and then Rasul Douglas questionable with a knee. Both those guys are starters on the defensive side of the ball. Douglas, we'll talk a little bit about him, assuming he plays, and then Dodson a little bit later on in the preview. But those two are definitely names to watch when the inactives come out. Just per usual, we'll kind of go over the Bills' offense first and foremost. Bills' offense really productive on the season. It seems weird because there's been a lot of times throughout the year that people have been down on Josh Allen, been down on the Bills, and maybe you could consider this a down year. They went 11-6 and barely won the division, but they ended up the 2 seed. If you just look at the numbers, they're third in EPA per play and second in success rate behind only the Niners. So I think perception is kind of getting in the way with how dangerous this Bills team could potentially be, not just this week, but as we move forward into the playoffs. Really, the Bills, one of the things that they really prioritized in the offseason was getting more multiple with their formations. They drafted Dalton Kincaid in the first round. They already had Dawson Knox. So, seen more 12 personnel with them a little bit this year. They'll mix up 11, 12, 21, 11 and 12 personnel. They're top 5 in success rate in both of those categories. One of the things that you can expect to see a lot of is RPOs. The Bills are the third heaviest RPO team in the NFL. If you just think back to, I'll reference this matchup from last year several times, probably throughout the video, because I've went back and watched the game recently. But one of the things that they killed the Steelers with last year was RPOs. Allen, I think, had 8 RPO dropbacks, 7 of those completions, 89 yards and a touchdown. They destroyed them. And it was really a myriad of different RPOs. They did some pin and pull stuff. They did zone RPOs, some darts, some glance. I mean, there was a lot of different stuff that they put on the table and really had success with all of it. So definitely keep an eye on that, especially, given how the weather plays out and all that stuff. Josh Allen doesn't really need an introduction. If you're watching this channel, I'm sure that you're very familiar with what he is about. Cannon for an arm. I say this all the time, but one of my least favorite cliches in football is this guy has the arm to make all the throws. Like Josh Allen is one of the very few people that actually that cliche actually applies to. Fantastic arm, loves to push the ball down the field. I think they have an 8.3 average depth of target. I think that's top 3 in the NFL. So this is a guy who wants to push the ball down the field. He wants to be aggressive. Elite creation capacity, can make plays on his own when things break down. When he gets out of the pocket, he's almost more dangerous than he is when he's in the pocket. Just a heck of a quarterback. The Bills have a chance to win every single game because of who's behind center. And he's really the engine of their offense. Now, that being said, Allen also comes with some volatility. He will turn the ball over, will put the ball on the ground. He's borderline reckless at times with the football, with that aggression, trying to fit the ball into tight windows. You'll see him go into playmaker mode a bit too much at times, in my opinion. But still, one of the absolute best in the game. Going to be a difficult task for the Steelers to contain him. Just some of the other weapons that they've got. James Cooks kind of came on this year since they fired their offensive coordinator. They made that switch. Um, I think it was like what mid-season or right before the bye week, something like that. They went from Ken Dorsey to Joe Brady. Now, Joe Brady, he's done a good job, incorporating Cook into the passing game. So they run some stuff where they'll get him vertical out of the backfield. So that's definitely something to watch. With the Steelers having some of those injuries at linebacker, but Cook's a speed runner. He's like right at 200 pounds. Has the ability to make guys miss. He gets in the open field, and explosive plays can happen. And then just kind of go into some of the receivers. Stephon Diggs, one of the best route runners in the league. Mike Tomlin acknowledged that this season or earlier this week in his press conference. Diggs really excels on hitches, slants, double moves. Really good at playing in the blind spot of cornerbacks. So that's something that Joey Porter Jr. is going to have to deal with. I would anticipate that Porter is going to follow him around. That's what we've seen for the most part of the year. Diggs' production did tail off over the second half of the season, but there was some missed opportunities there in games that I watched live, and he's still the same guy. He's just been a little bit banged up, and him and Allen have been a little bit off, but still definitely the number one target on this team. Mentioned Dalton Kincaid, drafted him in the first round. Kincaid is a fantastic route runner and also really underrated after the catch. As the seasons went on, they've gotten him involved more down the field. Early in the season, it just felt like they were kind of using him incorrectly. A lot of short passes, kind of using him more as a check down. Now, with these last couple of weeks, I feel like they've actually been letting him like actually run more routes, and I think they've paid dividends. They've won 5 straight, I think, coming into this game. So, but a very good player. Definitely expect to see them try to get him matched up on linebackers, maybe some safeties when the Steelers play man coverage in particular. Minka Fitzpatrick being back, I highlighted this in my article for Steelers Now, but Minka does not have an interception or a forced fumble this season. I'm looking for him to get that first one this week. Be a heck of a time to break out of that slump. But also just with some of the struggles that the Steelers have had against tight ends to fit in the middle of the field in his absence, and just with all these injuries they've had along the spine of the defense, he's going to probably go a long way in terms of shutting him down. Khalil Shakir also really came on recently. A really nice slot receiver, a guy I liked a lot coming out of Boise. Very good after the catch, can make some explosive plays, tough as nails. And then, kind of their other guy that I would expect to see some PT from on offense maybe this week is Deontay Hardy, guy they signed in free agency. Hardy is the guy that had that 95-yard punt return touchdown last week against the Dolphins to kind of break that one open. So Bill's got a lot of weapons, do a really good job of utilizing all those different guys. I've been pretty impressed with the job that Joe Brady's done. I'm pretty familiar with his system, just having studied that from his days at LSU. Joe Burrow working through that national championship season. And then just the offensive line, Deion Dawkins playing really well. He only allowed 1 sack on the season, according to Pro Football Focus. Really impressed with him. He's that kind of old school, power, bigger guy, bigger left tackle. And then on the other side, they got Spencer Brown. I think Spencer Brown has kind of came into his own a little bit this season, but I think it's some of that has to do with, really how they use him. The Bills are, I think, the number 2 or 3 gap rushing team in the NFL this season in terms of usage rate, and they've been really good. Like, I feel like one of the things that I've noticed is like they really like to get Brown on the move now. So they run a lot of what's called dart. The Steelers run this too. We've talked about it on the channel, which is just tackle pull. So they get him in space. Brown's a really good athlete, can get to the second level, can kick edges out. So they're using him. And I also think, them drafting Osiris Torrance, right guard, gives them a little bit of like more of like a physicality aspect to their offensive line, something that I think that they've missed in previous seasons when they've gotten into the postseason. It just didn't feel like they were as physical as they needed to be. They have more of an ability to run the football this season. I think that's definitely notable to talk about. So we'll see. They're a little bit more balanced. But one of the things that they also have the kind of ability to do, they're a top 5 in terms of rushing team and rushing success rate, EPA per play, all that stuff. One of the things I think they still have the ability to do, depending on how the weather works out. Josh Allen, they do have the ability to use him in the run game. And I don't mean scrambles. I mean like actual quarterback design stuff. You'll see them run like GT counter stuff with him, counter bash, dart bash. I've seen them use like pin and pull with him before. I mean, all this stuff is on the table. And I really mention this mainly because we don't know what the weather's going to be like, what the snow output, how much our team's really going to be able to throw the ball. I really don't know. It just depends, but that's always kind of like been a break glass in case of emergency. Not only his playmaking, his creation ability, but also just to use him as a design runner because that gives you a +1 advantage in the box. So it's definitely something to watch out for because Allen's definitely capable. Like he's big, he's tough, he's athletic, um, fearless when he's got the ball in his hands. So the Steelers really will have to be kind of on their toes in terms of like when they've got the ball, especially even if the weather does take a little bit of the passing game out of things. Kind of moving on to the defensive side of the ball, McDermott is the defense like play caller now. They had Leslie Frazier last year, so a little bit different from what the Steelers have seen. These two teams have played a lot in the past couple of seasons. Just dating back to 5-6 years ago, I feel like they've played like once a year. They didn't play this year, but they played in the preseason. So there's definitely some familiarity there, which I think is notable. The Bills really a solid average-ish defense. I think they're 11th in the EPA per play, 14th in success rate. One of the things that kind of characterizes the Bills and how they play, they're exclusively sub package. They don't play like a base defense. This is not a 3-4 or 4-3 base. They play nickel. That's what they do. They don't really match their personnel to how offenses come out. They like to play how they play. Teron Johnson's a big part of that. Teron Johnson's kind of like that, like Mike Hilton role for them. Really good in coverage, but an excellent run defender, excellent blitzer. So he's had some good games against the Steelers. He picked six Big Ben, I think 2021 in prime time. So he's had some really good games. One of the stats I'll kind of bring up, though, just about how they play. They like to play with the light box. Their safeties, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, really good players at the back end, solid veteran guys. But they play with the light box on 61% of the snaps. That's second highest in the NFL. The reason why that's notable is because the Steelers have been really, really good running the ball lately, especially against light boxes. If you just look over the course of the season, um, Najee Harris and Jalen Warren combined have over 100 carries against light boxes, and that's just six or less guys in the box. Najee's averaging 5.4 yards per carry, and Jalen's averaging 5.7 yards per carry. If that's how they want to play, the Steelers have to run the football. Like that's just the Steelers are much better running the ball than they are throwing the ball, and this kind of front could potentially play the way that they want it to play. So have to be efficient on the ground, especially on early downs, stay in front of the chains. I anticipate that they're going to rely heavily on those guys. Najee's coming off back-to-back 100-yard games. That's a good omen. One of the things that I will bring up in terms of the running backs have to take care of the football. Najee, I think, almost put the ball on the ground the first play of the game, but he was really solid holding on to it the rest of the game against the Ravens last week. Jalen put the ball on the ground a couple times. So that's just something to note, like with the weather being really bad, how the backs, James Cook has a handful of fumbles this year as well, how the backs and the quarterbacks hang on to the ball security in the conditions is going to play a big part in this game. Just some more stuff about the Bills, kind of the front and the way that they play. I already mentioned the light boxes. Ed Oliver, defensive tackle, has had a fantastic year for them this season. He got a contract extension in the offseason. There was some talk about whether that was warranted or not. But he's had a awesome year. He leads their team in pressures, 65 pressures, 11 sacks for an interior defensive lineman is nutty. When you can get that production from defensive tackle, that's awesome. Oliver is a little bit undersized for the position. He's really quick, really explosive, but he can get moved in the run game. So that is something to watch with him. The Bills in general are a really aggressive front. They like to get their guys up the field. So I would suspect that you're probably going to see some trap. They're probably going to see some misdirection stuff to take advantage of some of that aggressiveness. But we'll have to see. His counterpart, Daquan Jones, been a little bit banged up, but he's a really good run defender. He's more of like the traditional old school defensive tackle. Their edge rushers, they've got a plethora of guys that they use out there. They signed Leonard Floyd. He's a really bendy guy, finesse, speed guy on the outside. Greg Rousseau, I think they call him Groot, and that's just because the dude has long arms. So that's definitely something he uses to his advantage. You'll see some long arm stuff. He's a player who's gotten better and better over the course of the last several seasons. Still a pretty young guy. Their backups, Epinesa, Von Miller. Von Miller's been like pretty much non-existent this season, man. Like working his way back from injury. He's had some off the field stuff too. just hasn't been productive. But I don't want to completely dismiss him in the preview because we've seen some of the things that Vaughn has done in the playoffs over the course of his career. And I mean, would it really surprise anybody if he had like the best game of his season in the playoffs in a big moment? No. So just at the second level, no Matt Milano, which is really key. They lost him earlier this season, one of the best inside linebackers in the league, playing a lot of young guys, Terrell Bernard, Terrell Dodson. Bernard's a little bit lighter of a guy, but equally suited to, play the pass. He's pretty athletic in space, can move sideline to sideline. Dodson's had a really nice season as well for them, a guy that, I really didn't know too much about before like really studying him individually this week. But I've been pretty impressed with the way that those guys have played, even though I do think there is a down step from where like Milano and even like a guy like Edmonds was last year. So just on the back end, I already mentioned Hyde and Poyer, veteran safety tandem. Just how the Bills play in the back end is notable. You're going to see a lot of midfield open coverage. They like to play two split safeties. That's just their brand of ball. They play a two high shell on 60% of their snaps, six highest in the NFL. Midfield open coverage, 52% of the time, second highest in the NFL. That's just what you're going to get. The Bills don't really blitz. They're bottom 5 in blitz percentage. McDermott does a good job disguising things on the back end, making you do some work after the snap. Try to fool the quarterback with their eyes. But what you're going to see is cover 2 quarters, cover 6, all that stuff, quarter, half, whatever you want to call it. They play, cover 2, I think on the second or third, fourth highest percentage in the NFL. You'll see some quarters, some cover 6 stuff. Now, some of their quarters and cover 6 stuff does play out like with man principles. We talked about, on the post game and just on Twitter this week about how the Ravens took away George Pickens. He was awfully quiet, didn't have a catch last weekend. Part of the reason for that, what the Ravens were doing is when Pickens was on the outside, they were basically clouding his side. So what that means is they're playing cover 2 to that side. And what that does is it allows you to get 2 sets of eyes on a receiver. So it's basically an effective double team. Now, when Pickens moved inside to the slot, what they were doing was bracketing him. So he was definitely the number 1 target. It wouldn't surprise me if the Bills did steal some of that, but they already play some cover 6. The difference in how they play their coverages, though, on the backside when like Pickens is the X receiver. So say you're in trips right, and he's the lone receiver on the left side. What they will do is they'll almost play it like 2-man. So they'll match that guy up and they'll usually press him. So the cornerback will say, like, all right, I'm going to press inside leverage. And then there's basically a safety over the top. Now, that's like a true double team. So if they do that, they're going to force the ball elsewhere. There are ways to beat that or whatever. But, I would anticipate that he's going to be the number 1 target in terms of stopping the pass again this weekend, just based on some of the performances that Pickens has had down the stretch. And he's the big play receiver. And that's just the life of, an upcoming, star receiver in the NFL. Like you get that type of treatment from defenses. Other guys going to have to step up. Deontay Johnson, big play, 70-something yard touchdown last week. They're going to need some other guys to step up. Mason Rudolph's going to have to make some throws in this one. Wrote an article for Steelers Now about like kind of the best case scenario for them to come away with a dub in this one. Really highlighted a couple obvious things. Talked about the run game. Have to, win the game in the trenches. This is going to be an ugly game with the weather. Just with the way the Bills play and, the Steelers' identity on offense, it matches up, but have to take advantage of it. The Bills are like bottom 5, bottom 6 in yards per attempt allowed on defense. This has to be a big game for the backs. So that, I think turnovers are going to be key. Obviously, you're going to, like Allen is fantastic, but he is susceptible to, giving you a couple chances to take the ball away. And when those chances arise, you have to take advantage of them because this is, you go back and look at just the Steelers record this season when they've won and lost the turnover battle. Like we've talked about it on how many different previews and post games on this channel alone. Like that dictates whether the Steelers win or lose more often than not. So that's a key. I already mentioned Minka's impact, him coming back. Without TJ Watt, man, like, I highlighted on SteelersNow.com, wrote an article about like why I think the Steelers are a little bit more better suited to deal with the loss of TJ this time around as opposed to years past. You look at the small sample size, the Steelers have been incredibly efficient on defense, even when Watt's been on the sidelines. A little bit different when you don't have him for the entire game. But I'm confident that Herbig and Golden can give them a little bit of a spark on the outside, rushing the passer. But having said that, TJ, how many times have we seen him just completely take over a game? He makes a game changing turnover. He gets a key sack to kill a drive late in the fourth quarter, or something like that. Um, without him in the game, you're going to need somebody else to come and kind of put that Superman cape on a little bit. And I think Minka's the guy this week. He's had a really rough season in terms of just like stupid injuries, like inability to stay on the field, just dealing with different stuff. But he says he's 110%. I'm really looking forward to him playing some really good ball. If you think back, I think it was 2 years ago, like 2021. That was one of Minka's best games I've ever seen him play in a Steelers uniform. Was that game against Buffalo, the opener, in which they got a Miles Killebrew punt return or a block punt. That's also something that would be really nice to have this week. But that was one of the best games I've seen Minka play. They were moving him all around the formation. He was just making plays all over the place. So need a big game from him. But we will be back regardless for the post game recap. I guess it'll be on Monday night. Hopefully, if I can get it done. Um, I am also going to do a giveaway for the channel. Posted some stuff on Twitter yesterday, but we won some money betting on the games yesterday. So I'll do a little giveaway. Maybe we'll give away a subscription or something like that. And then hopefully, like I said, we'll have at least one more of these to go. I'm grateful to at least be able to do another preview, another recap. But hopefully the Steelers are able to pull off this one. Double-digit underdogs heading into Buffalo. I see the over-unders kind of, they're expecting more points now that they moved the game back a little bit. I don't know what the weather is going to be. I'm hopeful that the Steelers can at least make this thing ugly. That's all I ask. Be competitive, try to make it as ugly as possible, try to make it as chaotic as possible. I think that really is the formula for them to win this game. Need to create turnovers, need to run the ball, get a couple explosive plays. Just because they try to take George Pickens out of the game, don't let them completely just neutralize him and not give him some opportunity to change the game in your favor. But I'm excited about this matchup regardless. The Steelers are playing with house money, man. Like, that is what it is. Mason Rudolph coming in here, getting a huge opportunity to play. A guy that's played fairly well, honestly, over the past 3 games, leading them to the playoffs. And he has a chance. He's already made himself a lot of money. He has a chance to make himself even more money. And potentially, he wins this game or helps them win this game. He's going to have a serious chance, I think, to at least compete for the starting job next year in Pittsburgh. And I think he should, if they were able to pull off this upset. So, as always, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Wanted to get a good, healthy recap. Let me know what y'all thought of the video. Like the video, subscribe, drop me a comment, all the good stuff. Turn on notifications. We will do, like I said, a giveaway for the post game. So notification gang probably will get rewarded for that. Just a heads up. So I appreciate you guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Watch some good football.